So welcome to the podcast, the Public Policy Podcast. With me is a very special guest today, is Smita Prakash, and I'm sure she needs no introduction. Smita is flag bearer of many years of journalism that she has been into, and also has been one of the major public policy professional in a sense that she has been in the journalism and contributing to many public policy debate in the recent time. And most recently, she has the podcast with Smita Prakash has been quite a, I would say, blockbuster. So welcome, Smita, to this public policy podcast. And today we'll be focusing more on the role of media in public policy making process. So I just want to take you back slightly in the growing years of your journalism. You said when you were novice and you were put into mandal agitations. Since then, and as we are talking today, what has been the sea changes in terms of the media as such as we know, and especially in influencing public policy?
Thank you very much for having me here. You asking me about my journey, and that's why I'm mentioning the podcast because, I'm in my 50s and I would thought my journalism career is kind of over, and I will be now playing a more role of, mentoring journalists, young journalists. I really thought that, it's changed and now news is so fast and I am older person and I will not be able to keep up with the pace of news. But like it or not, I am one of those persons who always believes that there are new avenues opening up in journalism all the time. From when we began journalism, when there was really no private media as far as television is concerned or radio, there was just Doordarshan, and in the private sector, there were newspapers. That's about it. There was nothing else. Sure. And slowly, with economic liberalization, everything improved in the media scape. It suddenly boomed. And my life has been a series of, I think, accidental approaches towards journalism. Kabhi kuch kar liya, kabhi kuch kar liya. And I got into television agency as such when news channels opened up. So what we did was that in ANI, we started ANI as providing news from India to TV channels outside the country. We were providing it for American ethnic channels in America. We were providing it for ethnic Indian channels in UK. We were also providing news from India to main channels in like say CNN, BBC, all these people. We were covering India for them, television wise, but. Then what happened was that liberalization happened, TV opened up, and at that time there was News Track. I don't know whether you remember. Madhu Trehan had a News Track. It used to come in VHS cassettes.
Yeah.
So that's how it was. News was 1 week late. There was just a weekly roundup of news which used to happen. That's how I used to do it on a news channel, rather a news setup called Business Plus, which ran from Bombay. Mr. Amit Khanna used to do that. I don't have a business knowledge, but I worked and I had no exposure to, studying abroad, but I worked for foreign media. I just had a BA degree. And I did I studied advertising and public relations from Indian Institute of Mass Communication. It wasn't easy. It was easy in the sense that I come from a bit of a privileged background. So it was not as if I had to take loans to study or anything. It wasn't like that. But it wasn't easy in the sense that there were people who came in with, fancy degrees, fancy accents. I had none of that. And I was thrown into the job where Mr. Subhash Chandra started ZTV, and he said, "Shobh banao ghumta hai na." Hindi mein news roundup. And I was like, I'm a South Indian, मैं हिंदी नहीं बोलती हूँ. It's not the spoken language. So he said, तुम दिल्ली में पली बड़ी हो ना? So I said, yes, Delhi and Bombay. So he said, बोलो, उसमें क्या दिक्कत है? Learn how to speak in Hindi. Pick up the newspaper, read it. And I had studied Sanskrit and Hindi in school, so I started learning. And then I realized that Sanskritized Hindi is not gelling. It's not accepted because I was sounding like Doordarshan. So I said, क्या करें, कुछ और सोचते हैं. And then there was this one person who was working in our office. He said, थोड़ा सा उर्दू बोल लो साथ में. So I said, मैं उर्दू कहाँ से बोलूँगी, मुझे हिंदी ही मुश्किल हो रही है. मैं सोचती अंग्रेजी में हूँ, उसको फिर ट्रांसलेट करती हूँ, उसको फिर मैं हिंदी में बोलती हूँ. एंड रिमेंबर देयर वर नो टेलीप्रॉम्प्टर्स इन दोज डेज. इट्स नॉट एज इफ मैं टेलीप्रॉम्प्टर पढ़ के बोल रही थी, रट रट के बोल रही थी मैं. सो आई वाज मेमोराइजिंग माय लाइंस. आई वाज एंड लॉन्ग लाइंस. And we had hard lights, you have soft lights. Yeah, I had hard lights. So aankhein, you know, they would, it would hurt. And pasine chhootte the because AC itna to hota na, ek AC dabba wala AC hota tha, which you used to switch on, and when the camera came on, it would catch the hum. So you switched off the AC.
Oh my God.
So, and then you had to stop, and then pasine poncho, and then start again.
True.
By which time you have lost
the entire track.
You understand? So when I say hard times, I mean these hard times. So this is how journalism used to be. So I just feel that there's always scope for more and more.
Yeah. So, I mean, one of my, foreign journalist who was an expat journalist in Delhi, and I was talking to her, and she told me that India is like a place where you can have so many, news items that so you're flooded with things that you have to really choose. How does, ANI or you as a journalist choose between different types of story that comes to you and makes it into a headline? Because whatever you choose becomes also headline sometime, or becomes more, approachable for other people to know what exactly is going to happen. How does it happen for you?
Not so much out of choice. There are many stories that I would like to cover more. Just chota sa example I could tell you is that many years ago we started, it really bothered me that when I saw Naxal violence in the country. So we started placing reporters and cameramen in tier 2 level, tier 3 level towns and cities, districts. It required a lot of convincing the board that, we need to put people out here. We need stories from rural India to get out. It's not enough to do just city-based journalism. Delhi, Bombay, Calcutta, Madras, Lucknow, Hyderabad. These cities were only being covered. So we said we need to cover this because it really, really bothered me that we were not covering these. Naxal violence. Why Naxal violence? Kyun ho raha hai ye? What is the story? So we started covering at this level, and we would cover, like, for example, a road being built in a Naxal area. Now, when we went to those villages, they said that ये नहीं करने देंगे. आप जब तक इसको आप डालोगे नहीं TV पे, that, imagine people used to come and garland a JCB. This is much before Baba came and he started using the JCB for a different purpose. But they would garland it because that meant that सड़क बनने वाली है, बच्चे स्कूल जाएंगे, so much more. What a road means, only a poor person can understand what a road means to a village. So we started covering these stories and nobody was using them. You know how difficult it is for an editor to go to the board or to go to your finance and say that मुझे इस पे करनी है coverage. मुझे ये story करनी है. There was I don't want to name him, but there's a very well-known editor who used to go on social media saying distance from Delhi, DFD. कि ये distance from Delhi की वजह से ये stories होती नहीं है. Assam में floods हो रहा है. Nobody's bothered about it. Everybody is concerned only this. And it really got on my nerves because if I can do this and insist on those stories, then why are you not doing it? You have the capacity.
Absolutely.
And it is arriving. You don't even have to do kharcha. We are covering it. ANI is covering it.
Sending it to
you. It is lying in your newsroom and you're not picking it up. You're not using it in your bulletins. That gave birth to something called this Fatafat News, 60 stories per minute. Something like that, जो फटाफट न्यूज़ होता है, so then it started getting used.
So if you see over the couple of, if I say last 10 to 15 years, there has been sea change in the way media has also been. The one is definitely technology, which is there, and the social media's invention of social media. But what I also know from some of the journalists is that the access to government's information has been also skewed or controlled. How do you view it from your understanding? Has it really happened, or is it just some accusation for some journalists who probably had better access earlier, don't have it now?
Well, both, I think. Access is never going to be easy to a journalist. It's just that you can either spend your time moping and moaning and complaining, or you can use your pulls, you can use your pressures tactics that you have. That is what journalists have used all along. Do you think that Kuldeep Nayyar, who covered Shastri ji, do you think he covered it because he got easy access? No. You cultivated access. You went and sat for hours together in front of a mantri's room, in front of a Pradhan Mantri, in front of joint secretaries, secretaries to government of India. Those were difficult days where you had to get information because the only key to information was with government of India.
True, true.
अब तो आप यहाँ पे आ जाओ ना, आपके इंस्टीट्यूट में सारा डेटा तो यहाँ पड़ा हुआ है. फॉर एग्जाम्पल, इफ आई वांट टू नो दैट रूरल इलेक्ट्रिफिकेशन कितने गांव में है आज, how many villages have been electrified?
True. It's at the tip of your,
yeah. I can come to you. There is an app.
Yes.
I don't need to go to a joint secretary. So to complain and mope and moan that this government or that government, journalist's job is to get information. How you get it is the viewer and the reader is not bothered. Get the information.
Yeah. And you have been telling that media is not only silent spectator of the what government is doing or reporting or rephrasing that to it, but it's also have an active role in policy making. Can you elaborate that a little bit for me? Because what are the artifacts of that?
See, that is what is my opinion. It's a personal opinion that I feel that in nation building, we are not just reporters, we are citizens also. But I said, again, it's a subjective thing. Another person may not think that. For example, if students are watching this, what happens is, suppose there's a riot. Abhi Agniveer scheme ka dekh lo aap. Right? There were riots everywhere. There was anger on the streets. Things were going wrong. Now, in a certain district, the police might call and say, your reporter was here, he's covered this, they are burning the railway station, they are causing trouble. Please don't run this, because if you run this, the next town when the train reaches there, वहाँ पे भी आग लगा देंगे. तो आधा घंटा वेट करो, हमारा पुलिस टीम वहाँ पहुँच जाएगा, उसके बाद आप करो. Will you do that? It's your choice, right? It's a choice of a channel.
Yeah.
If, for example, I'm giving you a random example. If I'm an Aaj Tak and I see कि Republic TV ने already चला दिया, मैं क्या करूँगी? Right? If I don't run it, my advertiser is going to think कि ये तो पिट गए, not knowing कि इनके पास story है पर ये चला नहीं रहे because it's responsible journalism.
Absolutely.
Right? Republic might have a different take on it. They might think that we are going to run this, that will wake up the government, that it is not our job to provide security. No. Why is your railway police already not there at the railway station? Didn't you know that riots will happen? These are priorities.
True.
Of how you look on what the role of media is. I think every organization makes its own set of rules and regulations.
Yes. This another phrase which has been very common in the kind of journalism that we have seen also is the journalists also have now got colors, and they are branded left, right, centrist, and all that. So this is a very polarized atmosphere. And how do you actually save yourself and still be relevant for people who don't want to get into any of the sides? How does it happen?
Well, I think it is not easy. We were always branded. Journalists are always branded. We're not in this business for popularity. Firstly, all journalists need to know that. हम लोग यहाँ ताली के लिए नहीं हैं. अगर आप सोचते हो कि आपके रिपोर्ट से आपका फैन बेस बढ़ेगा, इसलिए आप रिपोर्टिंग कर रहे हो, तो then you're a dhabba to the profession, right? That's not why you're doing your job. You need to rethink on why you are doing journalism. You're not an entertainer.
True.
Your job is to show government policies. Your job is to show private grief or whatever you're showing, or how citizens are affected by public policies, how citizens lead their lives. Whatever journalism you're doing, you're not here for your talis. So that aspect is taken away. As an agency, we don't get talis. So there is nothing of that. I don't have that much of connect with people when I do it. A podcast is a different thing, but we don't have that. As far as a channel is concerned, some reporters I feel are so untrue to their profession. अपने लोगों को गाली देते हैं. The whole term Godi media was coined by a journalist. See, when a term like prostitute was coined for a journalist by a politician, or news trader, that was also by a politician. ठीक है, I am ready to accept that. We are called Mino media at one point of time. At one point of time, you are called Modi media, Bhakt media. You're called all these terms. कौन कहता है ये? People are saying it, random people are saying it, और politicians are saying it, कोई फर्क नहीं पड़ता. It's okay. Because politicians और हमारा aggressive और antagonist relation ही रहना चाहिए. I can never be friends with a politician, I'll be honest with you. Because मुझे कभी ना कभी तो रिपोर्टिंग करनी पड़ेगी आपके बारे में. You will not like me for the story that I do. आज आप मेरे को चाय पे बुला रहे हो, कल आप मेरे को गाली भी दोगे. ये मुझे भी पता है, आपको भी पता है. So we can never be friends. जो आप camaraderie देख रहे हो between me and an ex-politician, it is because of necessity.
Absolutely. Tomorrow you're not there, you'll not
I
see
am
it.
not in any fool's paradise to believe that the person likes me, and he also knows or she also knows that I don't like that person. We are there because that's our work to report on what you do. So that understanding is there. As far as the term Godi media is concerned, I do not like it when fellow journalists call. आप टीवी बंद कीजिए. आप क्यों टीवी देख रहे हैं? भाई, आपकी रोजी रोटी चल रही है टीवी से, और आप उसी माध्यम को गाली दे रहे हैं.
How do you tell us, people like researchers like us and teachers like us, what is that we learn from communicating certain messages, and then it reaches to the policymakers in a right sense of it?
See, what happens is that the research that you do is given to the government in most cases, right? And that then comes to us. Yours is voluminous work because obviously as researchers you would do that. That is consumed by policymakers when they formulate policy. But when they give it to us, they hand over exactly वही काम, right? Most journalists do not have time to read that huge.
Exactly.
They want it broken down. Then what happens is that we get executive summaries. Now, the executive summary is not made by you people. Executive summary is done by them. The executive summary is done in a manner where it is all glowing and how fabulous it is. Sometimes journalists don't even have time to understand that because there is a whole lot of work which has gone into your research, into what you have done. To make it understandable is something that you will have to, I guess, have more interactions with the media. Like I said, when this in my speech, I was talking about Jammu Kashmir, Article 370 ka. Now, Article 370 is a very convoluted thing. So much of work had been done. Now, there was a lot of legalese involved because there were so many legal experts that they had got together कि कहीं ये ठप तो नहीं हो जाएगा. Will it fall in court if somebody takes us to court? So there was a lot of legal document involved in that also. Now, that had been simplified and given to us. This is the problem, this is the solution. This is the issue where it can get into trouble. This is how it can be resolved. So this was explained to us. Then various things, like when we talk about women, how their rights, they will get more rights with after this abrogation happens. Unka kya hoga? So women ka alag tha. Sports persons, youth, it was categorized. So suppose I'm a person who's dealing with just sports. I'm a sports journalist. Mere ko wo mil gaya.
Absolutely.
How will sports persons benefit with this? So I'm just giving you an example of just one aspect. So this is the problem which happened with agriculture laws ka wo nahi hua, and which happened with NRC CAA. That didn't happen. And I think there will be a rethink. And if it is, triple talaq is another successive thing. So triple talaq was done very well. It was explained clearly so even the naysayers had to get on board because the research was there.
Absolutely, yeah. So I think that's another part is that the public policy professionals could also work underground in a sense that they may need to create evidence.
And I'll tell you, I'll be irritated with you if you come to me 300 page leke and you tell me कि ये आप कर दो. That is how we'll do it. I will then throw it back at you and say मुझसे नहीं हो रहा प्रकाश जी, मेरे से नहीं होगा ये ले लो आप.
जी.
अब आप मेरे को समझाओ, simple terms में समझाओ, which I can further simplify to a villager, further simplify to a granny, further simplify to a student कि क्या है इसमें, मसाला क्या है.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a nice note to end, especially for our students and our public policy professionals. It's wonderful having you, Smita ji, and always not all kudos to all your work.